That's an interesting question because there's a cost associated with that vaccination for the ranching community. The super vaccination, if it didn't come with a super price, it'd be an interesting thing to see how that might change the landscape. There would probably be, if it's for cattle, that's one side of the equation that I would encourage. The vaccination of cattle and a greater distribution of bison. If it's a vaccination they want to apply to bison, I want to know how that's going to change behavior, the wild behavior of bison. What's that going to change in terms of visitor experience? If every time somebody drove through the Hayden Valley or Lamar Valley in a white pickup truck, the bison all started to scatter because they thought they were going to be remotely administered a vaccination. How would it change the whole dynamic in terms of if you had a vaccination, can bison then be transferred to other public lands around the West?
And elk.
And elk. Can they or should they be? I think it'd be a great discussion that I'd love to be in the middle of, but I don't know that it would change initially how much it would change because of what I perceive would be the perception of cost and how it might still affect the marketability of cattle, from Montana to other states. Meaning, if there's a vaccine, if it's super effective, if everybody agrees that it's not going to, if cattle is vaccinated, that there's no risk of contracting the disease, that seems pretty remote to ever be in that case. But if you had something that was even 90% effective, I don't think it would change the dynamic. I think 90% effective, as long as there's a chance, I think there will be great opposition to bison having more landscape to be on.
Because of turf?
Because of turf, because of grass. I think competition for grass, especially on public lands with grazing allotments, etc. I think that people do not want to see bison have a bigger part of the landscape or shared landscape.
So the analogy that I've heard used is that our approach to thinking about a vaccine is akin to approaching malaria, in which you vaccinate all the mosquitoes instead of prophylactically vaccinating people.
Yeah, I think it is always amazing to me, and that we're going to solve the problem by vaccinating bison and not vaccinating cattle. That's something that what we know. And we did a study on remote vaccination, and our study basically said that we could take the prevalence of disease in bison from just over 50% to maybe 30% over about a 30-year period of time at a cost of somewhere probably between $15 and $20 million. And then we knew if the prevalence of the disease was still 30%, that it didn't change the equation. Nothing changes. Bison still would not be allowed on the landscape. They still would not be allowed to be transferred without going through quarantine process. So there was nothing in that for bison. Really does not, there's nothing in remote vaccination for bison. And if you don't do elk, let's say you did bison, but if you didn't do elk, the literally tens of thousands of elk, and the bison are going to contract the disease again.
Yeah.
So how does it work? I don't get it.
Yeah.